Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Naomi, and today I'm going to teach you how to do crow pose like a total pro. Okay, now crow pose is an arm balance. You're balancing on your arms with your knees on the outsides of your upper arms, like feet tucked up toward your belly, toward your pelvis, really. Now, I like to think of crow pose as like the gateway arm balance because it leads you into all of the others, right? So if you can do crow pose, you can do pretty much any arm balance that you want because the foundation is the same. Now, this leads me to the most important thing that you need to know about crow pose, okay? The big, most important thing you need to know about crow pose is that it is not about arm strength, but actually about your inner thighs when it comes to strength. Okay, so there are just a couple of things about crow pose that I think are really important to know. We tend to think that it's all about like how buff you are, and like I am pretty strong in my arms and my upper body, but it's not my upper body that helps lift me into crow pose. Okay, what helps lift me into crow pose is also not my core, even though I'm fairly strong there too. What helps lift me up into crow pose is having a solid foundation that I trust and that I believe in, and using my legs effectively to lift my feet away from the ground. So crow pose really comes down to a solid foundation, trusting in yourself, and active legs. And that's kind of it. Now, if you want to do other fancier things in crow, then yes, you might need arm strength or core strength, but really just to lift off, that's your legs, right? That's pretty much it, your legs and a confident foundation. Okay, so let's get after those things so that it feels more doable. Okay, now let's just see crow pose really quickly first so that if you are less familiar with it, you have an idea. And also, like before we really get into the pose itself, when you're practicing crow pose, if you're a little bit less confident, I highly recommend having a crash pad out in front of you. So like a blanket or a bolster or lots of pillows, whatever you need to make you feel happier about falling down on your face, because I encourage that when you're practicing crow pose. Okay, you need to know how far it is between you and the floor so it's not scary, right? If you never fall on your face when you are trying crow pose, then you are never going to get into crow pose because you will never know how close you are. Okay, so let's see crow pose really quickly first. So crow pose, my arms start on the insides of my legs, my elbows are bent. Okay, hands to the floor out in front of me, and I press down through each of my fingers. Okay, my hands are as wide apart as my shoulders, and what I want you to notice is that my knees are on the outsides of my upper arms. Okay, I'm not tucking my knees into my armpits or any ridiculous business like that. I can't bend my elbows like that, and I need my elbows to bend in crow pose. Okay, so my knees go to the outsides of my arms. I'm going to shift forward, and I'm not even lifting up yet, but I want to shift far enough forward that it feels a little scary, right? That if my forearms start to get vertical. Okay, if my forearms never become vertical, like the lower part of my arm, if that never becomes vertical, I will not be able to lift my feet away from the floor. That is just physics. Okay, like I won't be able to lift my feet away from the floor. Can you see how my forearm is not vertical right now? If I don't go far enough forward until my forearms are vertical, my feet won't go up, right? They just won't. So I have to go that far forward. That's one. Okay, then I really have to use my fingers to drive the action. So if my fingers aren't pressing down into the mat, then I'm not going to get much lift off because I won't feel safe, right? Think about it this way. You know, if you are with your kid or somebody else's kid and they're not really paying attention and they start to run into the street and you see a car coming, you are going to grab that child and pull them back. That's how much power you want to have in your hands, right? You want to grab the mat with your hands like you were trying to prevent a small child from getting hit by a truck, okay? So if I go into crow pose, I want to squeeze the mat with my fingers, shift forward, and as I shift forward, my feet might even automatically lift up if I'm going far enough forward. Okay, now I'm not going to hold it. I'm not doing anything with my legs to help myself hold it, but that shift forward is where it lives. Okay, then the last piece, like once I've given myself like, okay, I trust myself, I'm going to do it. The last piece is the squeezing of the legs. Okay, so as I place my hands on the floor, I squeeze the mat, I shift forward, I squeeze my knees against my upper arms. Okay, squeeze my knees against my upper arms, which wraps my elbows in, and then I can lift one foot up and then the other. And this is crow pose. Okay, that's it. That's it. It's still an arm balance. It's still a lot of work. So one of the ways that I like to prep is actually to prep my legs. So if I'm going to work on crow pose, And I've done a lot of stuff with my arms before. I don't do a really vinyasa heavy practice. I don't really do a lot of chaturangas to prep, okay? Because I don't want to wear my upper body out. Okay, I want to focus on my legs so that my upper body is relatively fresh. Okay, so let's try this. Bring the soles of your feet together, Baddha Konasana style. Okay, soles of your feet together, knees are apart. Guess what? Guess what this looks like? Check it out. Right, if you look at my legs, leave and turn, look at that. It's the same shape as crow. How cool is that, okay? So instead of now just having the soles of your feet together, slide your baby toes apart and just press in with the inside edges. Okay, just press in with the inside edges. Okay, and squeeze the inside edges of your feet together. And what muscles do you feel wake up? Your inner thighs, baby. Those are the ones right there. So you want to squeeze together. Okay, squeeze them. Okay, squeeze them enough that you can actually lift your knees up, sit up tall, arms out in front of you, and squeeze your knees in until they get right about to your elbows, and then separate them again. So just do that a few more times. Squeeze in, squeeze your thighs towards your knees, and separate. Squeeze in, feet together, thighs towards your knees, and separate. Squeeze in, thighs towards your knees, and separate. Squeeze in, thighs towards your knees, and separate. One more time, squeeze in, thighs towards your knees, and then reach forward. Bend your elbows, right? Press your hands as though you're going to balance. You're not going to get forward this way because your butt is firmly anchored into the earth. This is a really great way to prep for crow, and then squeeze your knees against your upper arms. You could even rock back, lift off, woo, and you might rock all the way back like I just did. Right? But if you can keep your feet up or just like tap one foot down, tap the other foot down, squeeze your feet in, you can feel the same action, knees against your upper arms, right? Because that's where you're going to squeeze to the point that it might get red back there. That's okay. That's fine. Okay? Now let's feel the squeeze somewhere else. Okay? So I'm going to get that blanket out of the way. Take a wide stance. This is another pose that I really like to do to warm up for crow pose. So turn your left foot out. Right foot is parallel to the back of your mat. Bend your left knee. Bring your left arm to the inside of your left leg. Right hand can be at your hip or at your belly or even on the floor if you want, but you're not doing anything with your right arm. Okay, right arm is just hanging out. Okay, now push through your right foot and squeeze your left leg against your left arm and then let it go. Squeeze your left leg against your left arm and notice what happens to the core of your body and then let it go. And also notice what happens to the core of your body. Can you feel? Okay, if you squeeze your left leg towards your left arm, you should feel a lift through the back of your body. When you let it go, everything kind of collapses down. You squeeze your left leg towards your left arm. This time hold. And you should feel all along the inseam of your left leg some big action. Let it go. Left foot in. And then just pause for a moment. Okay, it's big action that you're working, and then turn your right foot out. Right arm to the inside of your right leg, and it's the same deal, right? Left hand is at your hip. You're not doing anything with this left arm. Push through your left leg, though, so you feel totally secure with your left leg. Now squeeze your right leg towards your right arm. Feel that powerful squeeze. You're up on the fingertips of your right hand. You are not bearing a ton of weight here. You'll do plenty of that shortly, and then let it go. Okay, squeeze in, right leg toward right arm. Squeeze in, right leg to right arm. Let it go. Squeeze in, right leg to right arm. Let it go. One more time. Squeeze in, right leg to right arm. Woo. Oh yeah. That's good stuff. And then let it go. Okay, now walk back over towards your left leg and take pigeon pose. So left leg is forward. Knee is bent, so your knee sort of points diagonally to the left. And your left shin can be at an angle. You do not have to have your shin parallel to the front of your mat. This is really just, again, to take the shape of crow pose. Okay, so with your left leg bent, and we'll do the right leg forward so you can see what the right leg looks like. But with the left leg bent, right here, if I squeeze in, heel to heel, my hips lift up. This is the same thing that happens in crow pose. Hips lift up. So give yourself that good squeeze. The objective in pigeon is not to like get your hips all the way down to the ground. Okay, not now and not most of the time. The objective in pigeon is to create really good strength. This is a strengthening pose if you work it like that and reach back through your heel. So my back toes are curled under to give me more power. And I'm squeezing my legs in so I can feel my inner thighs really working. You can have your hands at your hips. You could even lift your arms up if you want. Okay, but let's switch sides. So hands come down. You can go through dog or table, but take your right knee forward for pigeon. Okay, same idea. The more you collapse down, the less your inner thighs are working, the less your core is working, and the less confidence you're going to feel. All right, so squeeze your legs inward, knee to knee, thigh to thigh. You're going to lift up higher, right? You're not going to be quite so low to the ground, and that's okay. That gives you power. You want power and strength in crow pose. Gives you stability too. When you're lower down, it might feel more stable because your pelvis is on the floor, but really notice the asymmetry in your hips. So if my pelvis is lower to the ground, my right hip is rolling out to the right, my left thigh is opening to the left, it's not particularly stable. But if I squeeze my legs toward one another, knee to knee, thigh to thigh, this is much more stable. My hips are lifted and they're level. I've got power now. Okay, and then come on back to table, and you're going to come on your back for the last one. So those are just warm-ups, then we'll do crow pose. So if you lie on your back, we're going to do what is often called like sort of not so much a dead bug on your back, but it's like dead crow. That sounds terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I've never heard anybody refer to it as that, but that's what I've called it. Anyway, you can call it whatever you want, but it's the same idea. So you're not bringing the soles of your feet together. You want to bring the inside edges of your feet. And I'll turn around so you can see inside edges of my feet together. Then I'm going to separate my knees. Okay? And the reason I want the inside edges of my feet together is this is what happens in crow pose. If my feet are apart, I have less power. When my feet come together, right, that action activates my inner thighs more, and it gives me more strength to pull in. So I can lift up here and reach for my feet as though I'm bringing my elbows to my shins and take this resurrected crow pose. Okay? And that just sort of, you can roll to your side because we're going to go into crow pose now, but that gives you an idea of the shape that you're going to take in crow pose in just a moment, okay? So you're just prepping your body on your back, and if your wrists are still sensitive, but you want to do some of the preps for crow, doing it on your back like that just gives you a really great way to train your muscles without having to put any pressure on your hands, okay? But let's head into crow pose. So I'm going to show you from the front and from the side. So from the front, I'm going to start low. I want to start in a squat. Okay, now if you can't get this low down in a squat, that's no big deal. You could even prop your heels up on something, right, so that your heels are lifted, but you want to be fairly low so that you can get your arms to the insides of your legs, right, as much in as you can, okay? Hands go out in front of me. You know, my hands go out in front of me so I can press down through my hands. Okay, I don't want them close in because then it's going to be so tight that I'm not going to be able to lean into my hands. So my hands go out in front of me. I shift forward and squeeze into my fingers. Then I'm going to lift one foot up and pull it toward the center of my hips. Okay, then I can put that foot down and lift the other foot up and pull it toward the center of my hips. Okay, I'm going to turn around so you see from the back. I know, great view, but I want you to see. I pull one foot up and I pull it toward the center. I keep looking forward. I'm not looking underneath myself because that will lead me to somersault. Okay? If I gaze forward in front of my hands, I see where I'm going or where I don't want to go. And then I put down. One foot up, down, second foot up, down, right? And this is like a marching crow. You can come on out and rest for a sec. That marching crow is essentially crow pose with one foot down, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's crow. And in fact, I'll do this from the side so you can see. One of the really great ways to know if you're stable in crow is to switch your legs fluidly. So if I shift forward, I can pull one foot up and then switch and switch and switch, 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 right? And that marching crow, yes, the longer I'm there, the more work it is. But if I can switch my legs in midair like that, that's sort of telling me, oh yeah, like I can lift both feet up. Now this is no big deal, okay? Now the last thing we're gonna do, so I'll do crow pose one more time from the side, but what I want you to see and feel is that pull of your feet toward the center. Okay, so you can use your crash pad if you need it or want it. Again, you can have it piled as high with pillows as you want, but I want you to get comfortable with the idea of falling forward, okay? And I know that doesn't sound very appealing to anyone ever, but once you get comfortable with the idea of falling forward, it gets less scary, right? It gets less and less scary. You have to get comfortable with the idea of falling forward if you ever want to balance. Okay, it's like the same thing as riding a bike. If you don't know what it feels like to fall off of a bike, right, then, you know, like riding a bike becomes very scary because you don't have the experience of like your worst fear. Okay? Not that falling face forward is your worst fear, or that falling off a bike even is like the worst thing, but you get the idea. Okay, so hands on the floor. I shift forward, and I go so far forward that my face goes down, and I put my feet down. Now that can be really intense on your wrists for sure, I get it. But you want to be able to just drop your face down onto the floor, onto something soft. Okay, so we'll do that one more time, and then we'll do like actual crow one more time, and then we'll call it good. Okay, so hands on the floor, shift forward. You don't even need to lift both feet off, but bend your elbows enough to face plant and to come down. Okay? And so what I know happens when I do that is that my legs aren't working. Right? That I've gone too low, my legs aren't working. But if I can squeeze my legs in to pull myself up, I'm not going to fall forward. Okay, so this last one that you're going to do, squeezing your legs with all you've got. So hands on the ground, glue your fingers to the mat, shift forward until you get a little nervous. Lift one foot up and pull it up toward the center of your hips. Lift your other foot up and squeeze your feet together, that inside edges of your feet. Squeeze your knees against your upper arms. Squeeze the mat with your fingers. Take a full breath in. Full breath out, feet down. And rest. And that's your crow pose. Okay? I recommend trying that a few more times, right? Like we can do it one more time. I'll face the other way so you can see my feet come together because I really think this is super important. Your feet need to touch. Okay? So you're going to do one more crow. If you want to watch and then rewind and do it with the instruction, that's fine. But I want you to see the feet. Okay, so my hands are coming to the ground out in front of me. I'm going to shift forward. One foot goes up first. I pull it up toward my hips. Other foot up, and I squeeze the insides of my feet together tightly. And then down. Okay? So that squeeze in is what lifts me. What holds me eventually is pulling up through my belly and my core, but that's after feeling confident in crow pose, right? That's like once you feel good in it, yes, like, you know, that's cool. Okay, so don't interlace your fingers the normal way, right? Instead, interlace your fingers so that your palms are both facing down and stretch forward and then stretch away to stretch out your wrists. So you stretch away. Stretch the backs of your hands, they come together. And then stretch and open. Give your wrists a little shake. Okay. And if you need more wrist relief, I have a really fantastic wrist relief practice that I will list in the description. So if you need a little extra wrist relief, I've got you covered. But hopefully this gives you just some really good tools to help you practice crow pose so that you feel more confident in your foundation and so that you have good actions using your inner thighs to lift off so that you don't feel like you have to rely on your arms, but instead you can rely on your legs, which are actually stronger. Okay, so let me know how your big crow adventure goes. Let me know in the comments. If this was helpful to you, give me a big thumbs up. Let me know that you liked it. And if you want to see more like this, let me know what you would like to see also in the comments so that I can create videos just for you. Because remember, if you subscribe to this channel, you get access to videos like this every single week, totally for free. All you have to do is subscribe in that bottom left corner and you are golden. So if you haven't done that yet, do that too. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to practice with me today. It is an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute, I've been teaching too long today. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Okay, until then, bye everyone.